Hey, party people. I have been looking on the internet and I've seen stories about this particular group of people before, but I thought that this YouTuber, I put his channel in the description. So y'all go and follow him. He's hilarious. And he, to me, of all the people that kind of told this story before about this group of people, is the most hilarious. But straight to the point and gets a good gives the audience, I feel like, a good understanding of who these people are to a degree as much as possible of the information that's available out there for us. So hopefully you guys are having a Merry Christmas. But let's get it.
You see, John had a problem. He was by a group of people called the Sentinelese, and nobody did anything about it. You see, the Sentinelese are a tribe of people that live on an island that has no contact with the outside world. But see, John's a missionary and thought, okay, if they don't have contact with the outside world, then they don't know about Jesus in them. So John decides to fly to India since it's close to the Sentinelese people's island. Now, this part's important. The Sentinelese people live on an island called North Sentinel Island. This is part of a larger island chain called the Andaman Islands. But see, the people in the Andaman Islands have contact with the outside world. The people in the Sentinel Islands don't have contact with anybody, not even the people in the Andaman Islands. They are literally all by themselves. As soon as John touches down in India, they say, okay, John, what you here for? John says, I'm just passing through. I'm trying to go to, listen closely, the Andaman Islands. The Indian government says, okay, no problem. But don't go to the Sentinel Islands. That's illegal. You see, the Indian government banned people from going to the Sentinel Island. And you'll find out why in a second. John said, illegal? That's too bad for y'all, because I'm going anyway. John already knew it was illegal. He said, I'm still going. John flies over to the Andaman Island. The people in the Andaman Island said, damn, over to the Andaman Island. The people in the Andaman Island said, damn, bro, we don't get too many visitors. What you here for? John said, sightseeing. Can y'all show me where the Sentinel Island's at? They said, we could show you, but we can't take you. It's illegal. He said, of course. They said, there go to Sentinel Island right there. It's across the water from us. John said, I bet, I'm finna need a boat. They said, what? He said, I said, LeBron, the goat. John goes over to look for a boat. John finds two fishermen. He said, look, y'all, I need y'all to take me to Sentinel Island. They said, what? That's illegal. You want to pay my bail? John said, I got $400 US. I don't know how much bail costs, but they said, say no more. You have me at US dollars. Hop on the boat. So John and the fishermen approach the Sentinel Island. The Sentinelese people see John and the fishermen pulling up. They start bringing out their bows and arrows, start moving aggressively. They're like, John said, you think they're trying to tell me to pull up? The fisherman said, nah, I think they're trying to tell you to stay here. John said, what y'all know? John hops on a canoe. He gets a little bit closer. Now, at this point, the Sentinelese people, they see him. John said, okay, raise the roof. All right, look, check it out, y'all. I got a Bible here. I just wanted to tell y'all about Jesus. That's when the Sentinelese really get to knucking and bucking. They pull out the bows and arrows. They say, ooh, if you come on this island. Ooh. John said, oh, them folk tripping. He leaves. The fisherman said, that's what we was trying to tell you. Them folk like that. John said, so's my Lord and Savior. We're spinning the block and coming back another day. John was not finished. He comes back another day. The fishermen tell him, John, we appreciate the cash, no refunds, but you can't go out there. John said, watch me. John takes the canoe again. He approaches the Sentinelese people. The Sentinelese people look at each other. They say, he's stupid. Stay over there. John said, okay, I'm just going to come a little bit closer. He brings out his Bible and starts to sing. He said, how great is... Boom! They shoot an arrow at bro. But the arrow hits John's Bible and he swims away. And here's where things start to get wicked. You see, they didn't accidentally hit John's Bible. That was their target. They didn't want to hurt him. They wanted him to go away. You see, there's a reason why the Indian government made it illegal for people to have contact with the Sentinelese. It's because their immune systems are not built to handle the diseases that humans in the world carry today. And the Sentinelese people know that because this British dude, Maurice, in the 1800s, pulled up to the Sentinel Islands, took 4 people. He gave them smallpox. 2 of them, he said, send the other 2 back to the island. The other 2 were coughing, sick. He said, send them back. Maurice then visits a tribe close by the Sentinelese, wipes out the entire population. Maurice said, damn, He wrote in his diary, yeah, it seems that we get people sick, but we the British since the 1800s, we finna pull up anyway. So after witnessing all this, you can probably understand why the Sentinelese don't want people approaching the island. Now, the crazy part is, despite witnessing all this, the Sentinelese people seem pretty chill. Indian anthropologists visited them in the 90s. Look at bro shaking hands. He said, what's good with y'all? Hey, we don't want y'all visiting, but like, we cool. The Indian people start giving them coconuts. The Sentinelese people like, appreciate y'all. But one of the Sentinelese people brings out some real sharp dough and starts putting it around his heart, saying,
My friend ordered this gel polish and changed her manicure every 10 days. This gel polish can be removed in 1 minute at home without acetone or causing damage.
One of the Indian anthropologists like, oh, I think we gotta go, y'all. The Sentinelese tribe's like, yes, y'all gotta go, but we appreciate y'all, you know. But unlike those Indian anthropologists, John didn't take the hint and decides to go a third time. And well, that was that. The next time they found John, he was on the beach of the island. The Indian government pulls up to the Andaman Islands. They said, what happened? They said, John went to Sentinel Island. India said, oh. The United States pulls up. They said, what happened to our citizen? You know we don't play. They said, he went to Sentinel Island. United States said, oh, that's that island where you're not supposed to, you know. India said, yeah. We went over to the island too to get his remains for y'all. Sentinelese people was not having it, but we did manage to get his diary. United States government looked at his diary and said, I know what I'm doing is illegal. If they catch me slipping, don't be mad at the Sentinelese. The United States said, no, we're not mad. The United States and the Indian government figured, well, he was warned a bunch of times. What can you do? In fact, his parents, John's parents, weren't even upset at the Sentinelese or John. They were upset at the evangelical church, who they believe radicalized him. In fact, even after he passed, some members of the evangelical church were praising him, and he became a martyr in some people's eyes, which to me is actually the wildest part of the story. Can you imagine if your son almost wiped out a group of people, and the church that made him believe all that was okay said, whoo, amen. In fact, to show how in deep John was, he even went to missionary training. Yeah, there's something called missionary training, where a couple folks from the church pretend to be indigenous people. They start speaking a different language, and you pull up trying to convert them. And to show even further how in deep John was, in his diary, he wrote, the Sentinelese island was Satan's last stronghold. Now, that doesn't mean John saw the Sentinelese as bad people. It seems he saw them as people he needed to save, which arguably to me is even worse, because John was willing to risk an entire population's lives, but as long as they saved, like, it's all good. And on top of that, in John's words in his diary, he was fully prepared to spend his entire life on the island. And that had me thinking, what if they say no? Like, what if the Sentinelese people accepted John on the island, heard him out, and said, nah, we don't want to convert? I was watching this missionary that spent 30 years trying to convert a group of indigenous people. At year 30, they're like, nah, we don't want to do that. He said, hey, yo, he said this completely broke him. They even interviewed the indigenous people. They said, yeah, he was talking about this and that God. We said, what your God look like? He said, some believe he's brown, some believe he's white. We said, you don't know what he looked like? He said, nah. We said, where he live at? He said, the sky. We said, nah, we need somebody on land. We appreciate you, but like, nah. Again, that missionary was with those indigenous people for 30 years. The missionary said as soon as the indigenous people said, like, we good, he realized, yo, what am I doing? He spent 30 years with a group of people. They smiling, breaking bread with him. Whole time he had ulterior motives. He realized, he said, I'm tripping. And on top of that, they said no to his ulterior motives. Bro went straight home. He left the church. Now, at the end of the day, John got for what he believed in. But to me, he was no different than that dude from the 1800s that went to the Sentinelese island. Because even though both men knew what might happen to the Sentinelese people if they went to the island, they went anyway. Because in their minds, their beliefs were worth risking the Sentinelese people's lives. But as we saw from what happened to John, the Sentinelese people disagreed.
That's a fact. Leave these people be. Now, I also put this in the description. So you guys, if y'all want to go, I put the link and you can go and look at the information that the internet has about the Sentinelese people. Oh, let me share my screen. So it says the Sentinelese are an uncontacted indigenous people. Let me see. Let me make sure I can read it on the right page so I can hear me. The Sentinelese are an uncontacted indigenous people living on North Sentinel Island, one of the Andaman Islands, or Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the Indian Ocean. They vigorously reject all contact with outsiders. Several international lobbies, protests, protests, and uses public pressure to ensure their wish to remain uncontacted is respected. If not, the entire people could be wiped out by a disease, which they have no immunity. It's true. Okay, it says the Sentinelese are the most isolated indigenous people in the world, at least that we know of. Because I'm sure there's other islands we've never seen before or people have never seen, but at least these are the ones that they say. Because think about Antarctica. But anyway, it says they live on their own small forested island called North Sentinel. I keep messing that word up, but anyway, which is approximately the size of Manhattan, and which is part of a island chain that is also home to another uncontacted people called the Shompen. Like, I looked at those people as well. They look more, I would say, Asian or Inuit type of people. Whereas the Sentinelese people, they look more like they came from, who is beating down the block knocking pictures off the wall? Anyway, they look like they came probably from somewhere in Africa, just because their skin is darker, much darker, at least from the photos that we could see. This island of people also continue to resist all contact with outsiders, attacking anyone who comes near. So, like I said, I put their information and their website, links to their website in the description. So you can go over there and read about the people over there. But this guy, the story of John, he's not the only one that has decided to, go to this island and then ended up unalived. He ain't the only one. He probably won't be the last because people don't listen. It's like, if these people done told y'all, leave them alone, stop bringing shit to the island. That's the other thing too, because people have managed to go there. This is years and years ago, and spread disease, because these people don't have immunities to the types of things that we have immunities to. They would get it would spread around like hot fire, and they would get sick, and then they would wipe them out. So leave them alone. But there's been other people who've come and given them other things that, in my mind, I'm of two minds about it. Because on one hand, I'm like, leave them people alone, let them be. Just it's this need to control every fucking thing, need to experiment and see, oh, look, we brought these people some sort of civilization. That annoys me. The other hand, it's almost like you want to introduce them to the world they know nothing about. You know what I mean? On some hand. And I can understand wanting to understand this group of people that really are anonymous to the rest of the world. Like, we know that they exist, but we don't know really anything about their culture. Except that if you go over there, you might kill them off. So leave them alone. That's really kind of what we know. And that they live off the land, and they're seemingly expert weaponists, meaning the people that they're expert with the bow and arrow. I believe I watched something where they brought them things that, that could help them, normalize them a little more, help them like come forward in their progress. And I don't know if they've used it, but they've allowed people to drop things off. And then they've used it. I've seen videos over the years about that, but I'm just like, let these people be. Just let them be. Jesus. They don't need to know who Beyonce is or who Justin Bieber is or Diddy, or they are just fine over there. They've been clearly living there for centuries, so let them be. The thing that I don't understand though is the islands that are around them that he named, the Amdanan Islands or whatever. It's like, have the people that live in North Sentinel, have they never chartered, I don't want to say chartered a boat, but you know what I'm saying, built some sort of craft or raft and left the island? That to me is the most fascinating, because it's almost like, how did you get there if nobody's ever left, you know? So, and don't know any way to get to another island. And, you know, I'm sure, well, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but in my mind, I'm like, at some point, somebody got curious. No? Is it just me? All right. Well, anyway, that's the end of this video. You guys, if y'all want more videos like this, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share the video, and that'll be all. This is, again, another video from Chanel's Reality. I'm Chanel, and this is my reality. Bye, guys.